Hi everyone. I don't normally make posts like this, but this is a very strange occurrence that I just had the urge to share. I do consider myself spiritual, but I am no way religious or actively practicing anything. Yesterday, I was in my bedroom with my younger sister and I was braiding her hair. It was taking a long time and I realized I had to use the bathroom, so I told her to give me a minute and walked out. It's important to keep in mind that I didn't tell her where I was going, what I was doing, or how long I would be gone. I just got up and went straight to the bathroom. I was in there for about 10 minutes because I had gotten into an argument with my friend over text, which is important to note because it doesn't normally take me this long to use the bathroom. After I'm finished, I walk out of the bathroom to wash my hands. Our sink is on the outside. When I walked out, I was in direct view of my sister because the sink is across from my bedroom door. As I'm washing my hands, I noticed she was looking at me with a perplexed look on her face, so I asked her what was wrong. She calmly asks me how I could have walked out of the bathroom. This was a very oddly worded question, so I asked her what she meant. She asked me, "Weren't you just in the living room?" And I told her, "No, I've been in the bathroom the whole time." My sister began to look very sick as she told me, "I just talked to you in the living room. When did you walk into the bathroom?" in a very concerned tone. I insisted to her that I did not enter the living room, and since I had gotten up and walked out of my bedroom, there was no point in which I had entered the living room. I asked her what I had said to her when she saw me in the living room. She tells me that she saw me sitting on the couch with my hands neatly folded, and I was staring off into space. She then told me that I had a very disturbed and concerned look on my face, which prompted her to ask me what was wrong, to which she claimed I responded, "Nothing," in an eerie tone. My sister claims that the me she had seen looked just like me. My hair was in a loose bun. I was wearing my same gray shirt and old red pajama pants. My face was the same. Everything was the same, but it wasn't me. I know it wasn't me because I have no recollection of that happening. I was in the bathroom the entire time, distracted by my heated discussion. I have no idea how this happened, but my sister told me after our exchange, she felt nauseous, like something was off. I'm not sure what to make of this. I'm a pretty rational person, and I've heard stories like this before. I want to look into possible carbon monoxide poisoning because it has been known to cause hallucinations. However, only my sister has experienced this. Neither me or my roommate have seen anything out of the ordinary. We've been theorizing about parallel universes, possession, demons, curses, but we really don't know what's going on and are just looking for some answers. I'm a 32-year-old man from and currently living in Cumberland County, New Jersey, which puts me about 45 minutes away from Philadelphia and 45 minutes away from the Atlantic Ocean, while at the same time being only about 15 minutes away from Delaware Bay. After high school, I went into the Army as an intelligence analyst for a while, and when I got out, I moved to New York City and worked as a project manager for my construction company, until I met my wife and decided to move back to New Jersey to be closer to our family, since she was pregnant with our daughter. That's just some background on me. So this happened in October of 2018. It was about 11:45 at night, and I decided to go out on my front steps to smoke a couple of cigarettes before I tried to fall asleep. Everyone else in the house was already sleeping. It was a pretty clear night without many clouds in the sky, but there was some fog on the ground. As I was smoking, I looked at the fog, and to me it looked like there was movement in it. I know that sounds crazy, but it was almost like there was invisible camouflage things out there that I wouldn't be able to see if it weren't for the fog hanging on the ground. As I was looking at the fog, I noticed this white truck that had driven by 2 times at this point. I could hear a woman and a man yelling at each other when the truck stopped at the stop sign in front of my house, and the woman gets out screaming at the man, and then slams the door as he pulls off fast. She then proceeds to walk into the woods across the street from me, which is really weird because there isn't anything back there, except for blue holes until you hit the bay. If I walk out of my door and just keep walking straight, There won't be any houses or civilization at all. Only trees and artificial lakes, blue holes, left over from sand plants until you hit the Delaware Bay. So at this point, it's been about 5 minutes since the woman walked into the woods, when things started going from weird to absolutely unbelievably scary, strange, and the most reality-shattering thing that's ever happened to me. I'm still looking at the movements that I'm seeing in the fog when I hear this very loud noise coming from the woods that sounded like metal being ripped apart. There really isn't a good example I can use for that sound, because it was so unearthly. I'm sure it wasn't a natural sound. That sound lasted for about 10 to 15 seconds, then abruptly stopped and was replaced with a different sound, which I could feel more than I could hear. Imagine being aware that there is a huge sound happening by you, but is out of the frequency that your ears can hear. That's the best way I can describe it. The sound is a constant through the rest of this experience. This is the point where I will probably lose some people, and I'm aware of how crazy this all sounds. But as I'm getting adjusted to the sound, it feels like something reaches out to me mentally in my own head, but does so without words, and only conveys a feeling of calm and a heads up or warning for what's about to happen. It kind of feels like whatever it was feeling me out to see how I would react to what I was currently experiencing, like a security check. As I was having this feeling of calm conveyed to me, I noticed a light in the sky that seemed to have risen out of the woods, I would say about 5 or 6 miles away from me. At this point, it was only a ball of light in the distance, but I just knew that it was coming right towards me, although it wasn't moving very fast. Right after I noticed the light in the sky is when I started to get really freaked out, more than I've ever been in my whole life. In the woods across the street from me, which was no more than 50 yards, all these orbs of light start to appear. I could see some which seemed to flicker into existence. These orbs were all white light, which didn't light up the area around them like what you would expect from flashlights. There were probably about 12 to 16 of them, which moved in a totally smooth manner. Besides the trail to get into the woods, the area is so dense and infested with thorn bushes, it simply wouldn't be possible for people to move where the lights were moving, let alone do it completely smooth. I really am positive that they weren't people with flashlights, because of the area and the characteristics of the light orbs themselves. So I'm just watching the orbs move around for about a minute, trying to make sense of what it is I'm seeing, when I look back up to the sky to find a craft coming practically right towards me, with it only being 1,000 yards away from me at this point. So I'm going back and forth, looking at the orbs on the ground, and the craft, which I started to make out better. It was flying very low. I'd say it was only 3.5 to 4 stories off the ground. I see the path it's taking, and see it's going to pass right in front of me, at an angle which I'll be able to see underneath the craft, and the side of it at the same time. The craft was a single-story dull black rectangle. I could see underneath the craft, and saw that the rectangle was made up of 3 smaller rectangle panels that fit together to form a larger rectangle. I clearly saw that the craft was made up of 3 panels. The size is harder to estimate, but I would say it was about 35 yards long and 20 yards across. Underneath, there were lights flashing in a pattern which would cycle through, then cycle back the other way. In the moment, I thought that the craft was signaling to the orbs on the ground. It didn't make any sound at all, and all I was hearing was the same buzzing humming noise that I felt more than I heard. While it was in front of me, it was moving really slow, to the point where I don't think a plane with a normal propulsion system could even stay in the air at that speed. I take my eyes off the craft and look back down at the orbs, which are still moving all around, though one was starting to cross the street in front of me. I only took my eyes off the craft for a moment when I looked at the orbs, but when I looked back, the craft was gone. For whatever reason, when I saw the craft just vanish like that, the reality of what I was seeing really hit home, and I got scared, to be honest with you, since my daughter, wife, and mom were all no more than 50 feet away from all this craziness I was watching, so I went inside and locked the doors. I just felt like I'd be willing to investigate more if it wasn't just my life that I was playing with. But I wasn't willing to take that chance with my family's lives. I could have just been paranoid at this point, but I felt like I was being watched for the next 2 hours. I didn't have any lost time from this event, and the entire thing happened only over a period of 20 to 30 minutes. Looking back on the event now, I question what exactly was going on with that white truck and the woman who walked into the woods at the beginning of this post. I've also done some research and found that there are a good number of reports of people seeing a glimmer man in the woods, which makes me think of the movement that I was seeing in the fog. Where I live is a very active area for UFO phenomena, which makes sense if something wanted to have an access to major cities like Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, and DC. What could possibly be a better place to hide than almost inaccessible 1,000 feet deep lakes in the middle of the woods? I know this is a very long post, but I wanted to be as detailed as possible. I'd really like to hear what you all think about this, and if anybody has a similar experience or knows someone who has. Thanks for reading all the way to the end of this if you did, and feel free to reach out to me. I should start this off by saying I'm one of those people that believes in the paranormal, but doesn't believe 99% of videos or stories out there because of how blatantly fake they are. The following event occurred during my teenage years. I think I must have been 13 to 14 at the time, and although it's not the most mind-blowing thing to have happened, it's still the only unexplainable thing that has ever happened to me personally. Around this time, I was obsessed with anything supernatural. I would go to the library to check out books on UFOs or ghost stories. Every day after school, I used to read true ghost stories on a website called theshadowlands.net. It was then that a series of weird things would start happening around the house, which were witnessed by several people, including my parents and siblings. They would range from my brothers hearing bumps and knocks on the wall at random intervals, to my dad noticing how some lights were turned off on his way back from the bathroom, even though he swore he had turned them on. None of these were witnessed personally by me, though, so the healthy skeptic in me refuses to acknowledge their authenticity on the simple principle of, I have to see it to believe it. I did experience something odd eventually. It all culminated when one evening I was having dinner with my mom. We sat opposite each other. I was facing her, with an obscured view of the kitchen behind her, as there was a counter dividing the rooms. I distinctly remember my brothers and my dad were not home at the time, so it was just the two of us, when suddenly the weirdest thing happened. I can't remember what was for dinner that night, but I still remember, clear as day, I saw the kitchen stove light turn off and back on very distinctly. It wasn't a flicker, which could be attributed to a technical malfunction. No, it was a very distinct on, off, 1 second, on. My mom must have noticed the confusion on my face because she asked what was the matter when the most unexplainable thing happened right after. We both heard this sound. Like, imagine all your pots and pans being roughed around violently in the kitchen. It even sounded like some fell to the floor, just clanging sounds all over. It was so loud and clear, we looked at each other wide-eyed, and without saying a word, stood up and walked over to the kitchen, expecting a total mess, and there was just nothing out of place. I knew for a fact something strange had happened because I could hear my mom's voice trembling as she was trying to rationalize what just happened to me. She said something like, "Must have been the mice," as we did have a mice problem at that time. But then I told her what I had seen before, about the light turning itself on and off again. She hadn't seen that, as her back was facing the kitchen, so I think she simply chose not to take my account seriously. I'm not sure, today, if she even believed when I told her about it. The noise we heard was so loud, it couldn't have ever been mice, not even a few dozen of them. What's more, nothing seemed out of place. I would be willing to chalk it up to mice, though, just to ease my mind. But I saw what I saw, the light. There's just no way that both of these occurrences happened one after the other. as coincidences. I think it's worth noting that this stove light has never exhibited that behavior before or since that night as well. I still have no clue what happened then. I doubt I ever will. Hi friends, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful night. Please take care of yourself and sweet dreams.